Well, now joining me to look at this and also the sack of some of the Bakassi indigents by Cameroon from their country for alleged non-payment of taxes is a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Emeka Ngige. Thank you so much for joining us on the News at 10. Mr. Ngige, can you hear me?
Thank you for having me.
Now, what do you make? How do you assess the relationship between the executive and the legislature, especially in view of this confirmation, non-confirmation of appointees by the Senate and then the presidency refusing to back down? What do you make of the whole scenario?
Well, it's very clear that the relationship between the executive and the legislature is not cordial. And obviously there is a communication gap which has not been in the interest of our democracy. The executive arm, starting from the president, the vice president, and then the legislature, the president of the Senate, the speaker, and the principal officers of the House, they ought to belong to one political party. And indeed, they belong to one political party. In the constitution of most of the political parties, be it PDP, APC, APGA, there is a body there called National Caucus of the party. The National Caucus of the party sits at least every fortnight, if not every week, where the president of the country, the vice president, the speaker, the president of the Senate, and other principal officers of the House, the national chairman of the party, and the national members of the National Working Committee of the party, the governors, they meet to bridge communication gap, to discuss on how the party program will be executed, implemented, without misunderstanding or without friction. But you can see that in this dispensation, I've never heard that National Caucus of APC is meeting or has met. The same thing that the last time caucus of a political party met was when Obasanjo was president. So that has been one of the reasons why you find members of the same political party at the legislature and at the executive singing different tunes, discordant tunes. And that is what is happening in this Mago issue.
Now, where does the law, I'm sorry to cut you, but where does the law stand? Because we have two contending points here. The National Assembly saying they do have the right to confirm or not to confirm appointees sent by the executive. The acting president allegedly pointed out that that's not necessarily true, with the exception of ministers and ambassadors. You're a lawyer. Where does the law stand as at today on this?
Yes, let me tell you, at the beginning of this disagreement, I was standing with the legislature based on the provisions of Section 2.3 of the EFCC Act. At the time the argument was raging, nobody's attention was drawn to Section 171 2D of the 1999 Constitution. And when my attention was drawn to it and every other person saw that provision, it became clear that a confirmation of the Senate is not needed for the confirmation of the chairman of EFCC, irrespective of the provision in the EFCC Act. That is the position today. The Constitution is superior to the EFCC Act. So if there is a conflict, to the extent of the inconsistency, the EFCC Act will be null and void. But this is the situation where if the legislature feels strongly they have two options. One, to go to court, invoke the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, and challenge the refusal of the executive to present or to remove Mr. Magu from office after his rejection by the Senate. Or two, take advantage of the constitutional amendment process now ongoing and remove that provision that empowers the president of the country to appoint permanent secretary or head of any extra-ministerial department, no matter the designation, from being subjected to Senate confirmation before appointment. Let them remove it from the Constitution, then every appointment that the law provides for will be brought to them for confirmation. Personally, I feel that an appointment that has been made, if the law provides for it, for Senate confirmation, it should be done, so that the Senate will have the opportunity to do their oversight, to ensure that the people that have been brought there are qualified, to ensure that the people who are being appointed have no skeleton in their cupboard, and to ensure that there is fairness in the spread of the appointments.
It's at that point that we're going to have to.
Constitution.
It's at that point we're going to have to leave it, Mr. Ngige.
That the president.
We've completely run out of time, Mr.
All right.
Ngige. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for your perspective. It's a pleasure to have you with us.